This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol live. It's a freaking Halloween. This is the Troll Patrol Spooky Spectacular, featuring the Missouri Senate debate between Josh Hawley and Lucas Kuntz. After the debate, we've got some spooky news to be covering. We're going to be doing spooky news after the debate. I've got some wild stories, all with a Halloween theme. And then after that, we're going to go back to Twitch exclusively, and we're going to be watching more Halloween classic television specials. I'll try to take you guys up until the time that producer Dave comes on with Cults and Satanic Panic here on this Halloween night. Good evening, happy Halloween to everybody. Hope you guys are having a fantastic night. Light one up, tip one back. Lazy Eyes, welcome in. So glad to see you here, my friend. Prometheus, Byronic, Soup, Lenny, Holiday. You guys are amazing. Energy Flow. Happy Diwali. I didn't know that was today. I have a graphic for that. Not Taco. Wait a minute. Taco Thursday. I didn't know Taco Thursday was a thing, but any time is a good time for tacos. I'll just throw that out there. Michael, good evening. I really want to get to the end of the song. I think the song's really cool. Here's your meme of the day. Y'all be careful out there this year. Someone tried to hide Hamas's headquarters in my kid's candy bar. Anybody else seen any Hamas headquarters in your kids' candies? We gotta be quick about it. We gotta be quick about it. It's going on right now. The Missouri Senate debate between Josh Hawley and Lucas Kuntz. Let's do it. Mox, my man.
What in many cases the average interest rate is right now, nationwide, 30%.
I had it paused.
It's absolutely outrageous. We have got to get those costs down. We've got to get.
I'm sorry, I made you miss the beginning.
American energy production. What I would not do, however, is
no costumes.
Said he would do, which I have to say I just don't understand. He has a plan to get rid of all fossil fuels in the state of Missouri, to get rid of all American energy, no gas, no diesel, no biofuels. He endorsed it and wrote about it last time he ran for the Senate 2 years ago. I think that would be just the opposite of what we need to do. That would raise the cost of electricity. One economist estimates by 100%. I can't think of anything worse for Missouri families.
Mr. Hawley, thank you for your response. Mr. Kuntz,
he kisses her just not like a normal human being would.
It led to crippling credit card debt for your family. Do you support imposing an interest rate cap, and if so, how much?
This is Lucas Kuntz,
That's true.
the Democrat.
My family went bankrupt from medical bills when I was a kid, and I just want to say how happy I am to be here tonight. You know, for a normal guy like me who grew up in a working class neighborhood.
And see, you see the spelling of the name. I've not been saying it wrong. You've been hearing it wrong, you fucking pervs.
Life as a U.S. Marine trying to pay everybody back in that old neighborhood, because the way we made it through that time, it wasn't because the credit card companies were there for us. It wasn't because country club politicians like Josh Hawley were there for us. It's because the people in our old neighborhood who had no more money than we did. You know, they passed a plate down at my mom's prayer group for us. They brought by more food by the house than we could eat, and they really just took care of us. And so for me, that's why I'm running in this U.S. Senate race. It's to take care of the everyday people who took care of me. Absolutely, we need to cap credit card rates. But you know what? Half the people there can't get another credit card, and they have to turn to things like payday lenders. We need to cap payday lenders. We need to regulate them. We need to make sure that these predatory financial institutions can't come in and destroy people's lives over and over and over again, because you can see the result of that in my old community. Like, if you go back to this old neighborhood, sure, it was working class, but we all had enough money to take care of each other. You go back there now, Josh Hawley's war on working people shows in every single corner. The first house that I lived in there is now an empty lot. The house across the street became an empty lot, and it's only got something there because Habitat for Humanity came in and built something. The house I joined the Marine Corps out of, that everybody brought food by, is boarded up to keep the squatters out, and the store on the corner where my little sister and I, when we were 6 and 8 years old, could walk by ourselves to go buy candy, has been shut down because it's been robbed so many times it can't get insurance anymore. It's because corrupt politicians from both parties have taken money from the wrong people over and over and over again. I take no money from corporate PACs, no money from federal lobbyists, no money from big pharma executives, because the only people I will ever owe are the folks in that old neighborhood who took care of me and my family.
Thank you so much for your response. I have a follow-up question for each of you. Again, starting with you, Mr. Hawley. Financial experts fear lower interest rates would lead to more credit card applications and more people being denied credit. Mr. Hawley, what do you say to Missourians who rely on credit cards to make ends meet? You have 30 seconds.
Well, listen, I would just say this. I think it's absolutely outrageous that folks who are relying on credit cards, and in this economy, in Kamala's economy, more and more people are doing that. They're putting their food on credit cards. They're putting their gas on credit cards because they can't afford it. Gas prices are up 70% in many cases. This is why I think we need to cap credit card interest rates. I don't buy the idea that the credit card companies that will then write off a bunch of people, they want the profit, they want the market. What I would not do is what my opponents
Mark, she's like a MSNBC contributor or something, isn't she?
He said that he would get rid of all fossil fuels. That would drive the cost of energy up by 100%. We can't afford that.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley, for your response. Mr. Coons, families facing similar financial hardship as yours did could be denied credit if rates are reduced drastically. What do you say to Missourians who rely on credit cards to make ends meet? You have 30 seconds.
These predatory financial institutions are not going to give up on their cash cow. They're going to keep going after it. They're going to find other ways. Look, this economy has been hard on all of us. We have all struggled. Well, everyone except Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley's flying around in a private jet all over our state because he treats us like flyover country. You know, he's got fancy haircuts. He hangs out with the most fancy federal lobbyists, and he doesn't take care of us. He doesn't bring money back home. You want to help out Missourians? How about bringing home the $300 million a year that Roy Blunt brought home every year? Josh Hawley, every year is zero. That's money for working families that we just don't have.
Mr. Coons, thank you so much for your response. We appreciate it. John?
Boy, both of you have certainly made the news recently for different things, so we're going to touch on each of these items separately. We'll start with you, Mr. Coons. At your October 22nd gun range event north of Kansas City, which the senator alluded to, a reporter was struck in the arm by shrapnel. Thankfully, he's okay, and the case is closed. No prosecution plan, but a lot of experts had questions based on media photos of the safety of the gun range, the private gun range that was being used at that time. So here's my question. Do these concerns contradict the image you've portrayed as a trained military veteran and also a gun advocate and gun owner? You have 90 seconds.
Absolutely not. You know, I think Josh Hawley's take.
Oh, wait, did he call him Koontz?
Tells you everything you need to know about this guy. Some Union folks up north of Kansas City invited me up there to go to a shooting range that they've all done training on, had multiple trainings on. It was run by an NRA certified training counselor. They wanted to do this range. I went up there. We followed the guy's directions. We did what he said, and unfortunately, a reporter was hurt by a piece of shrapnel. It was a minor injury.
I condemn that pronunciation.
Him up, and we went on. And so it's crazy to see this guy over here clutching his pearls so hard over this, considering the fact that he's completely cool with inciting a riot that led to the injuries of 174 police officers, God knows how many other civilians, and even led to several deaths. You know, the big difference between Josh Hawley and I is when I was at this event and I saw Ryan get hurt, I immediately went over to him, I stopped what I was doing, I took out the medical kit, I put a bandage on him, he was able to keep reporting. Josh Hawley, when literally hundreds of people were being hurt at his place of work, did the exact opposite thing, right? As a Marine, we go towards danger. We help people out when they're hurt. Josh Hawley, as the selfish swamp creature that he is and has always been, he ran away as quick as he could back to his $2 million Virginia estate and hid his head and hasn't said a single thing first. The man is literally all about himself. The people in this election have a real choice. A U.S. Marine who spent his entire life trying to pay back the people in my old neighborhood who took care of me, or a selfish guy over here who makes $500,000 in book sales, tripling his Senate salary, and brings nothing home to Missouri because he only cares about himself.
Mr. Coons, thank you. Mr. Hawley, in your case, and your opponent alluded to it, in 2018, when you were campaigning against then-Senator Claire McCaskill, you called her out for using private aircraft to fly around the state. Fast forward to 2024, And our review of Federal Election Commission documents reveals your campaign has spent more than $194,000 to do the exact same thing, essentially. Your critics, your opponent, have called you a hypocrite for that 6 years later. What say you? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. Well, here's what I would say. I will use planes, trains, and automobiles to travel the state of Missouri, to see my constituents and to do my job and to reach every single corner of the state. And I tell you something else, all of those things have something in common. They all use fossil fuels. And if my opponent has his way with his plan, none of us will be able to use fossil fuels. I'm talking about oil, I'm talking about diesel, I'm talking about natural gas, I'm talking about coal. Listen, when my opponent ran for the Senate last time, and I say last time because he's run for office for 20 years now, 4 different offices or 5, I lose track, and when he ran for the Senate 2 years ago, his plan, which we'll post online right now, by the way, Kuntz Misfire is the Twitter handle. You can find all of this there all night. His plan called for eliminating American energy. Where would we buy it instead? From China. What would that do to our electricity bills? Economists estimate it would increase them by 100%. I just think that that's off target for Missouri. I think it's totally crazy.
Mr. Hawley, just with all due respect, you didn't answer my question. The critics have called you hypocritical for calling out Claire McCaskill 6 years ago, and now you're flying around in a jet as well as part of your campaign. What say you about those allegations?
Well, if I did remember,
15 seconds.
If I remember correctly, my opponent 6 years ago lied about what she was doing. She said she was in an RV when in fact she was flying in a private plane. I tell you, you may not always agree with me, but I'll always tell you the truth, and you will always know where I stand. I wish I could say the same thing for my opponent. Like, for example, who's he voting for president this year?
Thank you. Shirley?
You
All
think
right.
you just
Recent
fell out of a
polls
coconut
indicate
tree?
Amendment
Rebuttals,
3.
do we ask for those or?
No.
Okay.
We're moving on. Thank you.
Recent polls indicate Amendment 3, which would lift the statewide
No rebuttal.
abortion, is expected
You are
to
shut down.
Mr. Hawley, if that happens, will you bring back your 2022 bill, which bans abortion nationally at 15 weeks, or support similar legislation? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad you raised this issue because I know that this is on the minds of so many people around the state. And I want to just say a word first about Amendment 3. I want to level with everybody on this. I'm not going to vote for Amendment 3. And the reason is this. I mean, first of all, I'm pro-life. I believe in exceptions for rape, for incest, and for the life of the mother. I do think that those decisions ought to be made by voters at the state level in most cases. But listen, Amendment 3 goes far beyond what I just said. Amendment 3 goes far beyond abortion. Read the language carefully. It never mentions the word woman. It says it is not limited to abortion. It says it is not limited to fertility. In fact, it says it encompasses all reproductive health services. I want to be clear about this. Amendment 3 would legalize sex change operations and transgender treatments for minors in the state of Missouri without parental consent. I simply can't support that. So I'm going to vote no on Amendment 3. Now, I know my opponent is for Amendment 3. He is for sex change operations for minors. He's for men and women's sports and men and women's bathrooms. I just think that
Have you no shame, sir?
state of Missouri. As to at the congressional level, what I would support is reasonable restrictions, like restrictions on partial birth abortion, restrictions on when the baby is able to feel pain. Beyond that, I think that the state voters ought to decide, which is what we're doing in Missouri. But I say again, I cannot support my opponent's position, which would legalize sex change operations for minors in Missouri without parental consent. I just think that's off target for our state.
Mr. Hawley, seeking clarification, the question is, will you bring back your 2022 bill, which bans abortion nationally at 15 weeks, or will you support similar legislation? That's the question, sir.
And what I stand by my answer, which is that I do not believe in a national abortion ban. I do support reasonable restrictions at the federal level, including restrictions on partial birth abortion and when the baby is capable of feeling pain, which is the legislation that you were just referring to. But I want to emphasize, I am not going to support legislation that will legalize sex change operations for minors and change our law in Missouri. I can't do that.
Mr. Hawley,
He's not going to support something that doesn't happen.
Patchwork of abortion amendment laws across the country. If elected, would you support a national standard for all states so women have equal access to reproductive care? You have 90 seconds.
Right now in Missouri, if you get raped, you have to carry that rapist child. Plain and simple, that's it. There is no exception. When that law came into effect, Josh Hawley said, and I quote, "Thank God," and he celebrated it. That is his true position on this thing outside of an election year. And it's even worse than that. The man has written articles where he says that the morning after pill and any type of contraception that prevent the implantation of a fertilized egg is the exact same thing as abortion, which of course he has called murder on the Senate floor. And that's not all. He wants to control us in literally every single aspect of our lives. He has said that we need to reconsider the wisdom of no-fault divorces because I guess he's tired of women getting out of unsafe marriages and abusive marriages. That is where this guy is on every single one of these issues. He wants to override the will of Missouri voters and voters in every other state by, as you put it, he has already co-sponsored a national abortion ban. He has co-sponsored a national abortion ban because he thinks it's his job to decide how all of us get to live. I think Missourians are smart enough to make their own decisions without politicians like Josh Hawley coming in and telling us how to live. I will codify Roe versus Wade at the national level because I believe that Missourians have the right to do that. As for all this him seeing sex change surgeries around every single quarter, it's ridiculous. The Missouri courts have looked at this and said that that's not true. You want a guy who can't shoot straight, it's this man right here. He will literally lie, cheat, steal, do anything he can to confirm his life's ambition, which is to make sure that there is no abortion, no contraception, or anything else. Women have to step aside, as he and Harrison Butker put it.
Mr. Coons, thank you for your response. Mr. Hawley, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Well,
Here, Josh.
There's a lot of scattershot there. Let me just say this, that at the end of the day, I think it's absolutely vital that we protect our women and children in this state. And that's why I cannot support legislation that would allow sex change operations for minors without parental consent. Now, my opponent has supported it. It's not just recently. He supported it for years. He supported men in women's locker rooms and men in women's sports. When he ran for the Senate last time, he endorsed both of those measures, and he endorsed the Democrats' national legislation earlier this year that would have imposed sex change operations for minors in Missouri.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coons, you have 30 seconds to respond, sir.
Yeah.
Would have imposed sex change operations.
Look, the guy, like I
Your
said,
kid would be forced
surgeries
to
around
change their gender at school without your consent.
vote against a no exceptions abortion ban that would make someone carry a rapist child. That is his core belief. He's built a family business around it. He has an entire lifetime legacy of working toward that. He's not going to give it up. He will stand here and he will lie to make sure he can make that happen. He said on the Senate floor that he thinks he's the same as the abolitionists fighting against slavery on this movement. He will literally do and say anything to convince people otherwise.
Thank you both for your response. We're going to turn now to foreign policy. John?
And let's start in the Middle East, gentlemen. After Israel's recent airstrike in Iran, Iranian military leaders are
It's
promising
a nice tie.
bitter and unimaginable consequences. The U.S. has long supported Israel diplomatically and with resources, clearly the strongest ally we have in that region. But given the rising tensions, is there a tipping point with which you could support boots on the ground, combat troops from America to protect Israel? We'll start with you, Mr. Coons. You have 90 seconds.
As the only person up here who has been boots on the ground, I led a police training team in Iraq. I had 12 Marines and a Navy corpsman, and my job was to run, plan, lead all of our missions, dozens of them outside the wire, and bring everybody home safe, which thank God we did. I deployed to Afghanistan twice, and unfortunately not everyone came home from those deployments, and I would just say the red line should be boots on the ground. We should never put boots
Navy
on the ground.
corpsman sounds
And the troops that we
sexual.
have there right now should come home. We have wasted 20 years and $7 trillion over there when neighborhoods like the one I grew up in are falling apart. We are putting ourselves into a quagmire. The war in 2003 was for oil, something that we should never be fighting for. And the most disappointing thing about this is that when Josh Hawley had the ability to undo this, to vote against extending the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, he didn't do it. He has made it so that we can be in forever wars, literally forever. I think that's wrong. I think he doesn't get it because he doesn't understand the military. He doesn't understand what it's like to deploy, and we should never have boots on the ground there. I will say this, though. As far as October 7th is concerned, I think what happened was an absolute tragedy. I think Israel had a right to defend themselves, which you have seen. And I think what you've seen since then, though, with tens of thousands of civilians dying, is exactly what...
Well, this is the real horror show.
It doesn't work. You can't just kill everybody. The Taliban still runs Afghanistan. Iraq still has ISIS running all over it. What we need to do is get to a negotiated ceasefire. That includes the return of the hostages, and we need to do that quickly.
Mr. Coons, thank you. Mr. Hawley, same question, essentially. Is there a red line or a tipping point that would allow you to support boots on the ground combat troops from the U.S. in Israel? 90 seconds.
No, I would not support boots on the ground, and our ally Israel is not asking for that. It's the same reason that I haven't supported our policy in Ukraine, where we have spent $200 billion to date, and the tab continues to run. And I think military assistance there in terms of actual boots on the ground.
I'm a man of the people.
This
Nancy,
is
this
another
is an
area
eating
where my opponent
establishment.
and I have a difference. My opponent has said very clearly
You'll get me copyright struck on YouTube.
supports the aid to Ukraine. He supports all the spending in Ukraine. I just think that that's a misfire, if you will, for this state, for this country, when our own border isn't secure, when we have 15 million illegal immigrants flooding into our country. And here we are spending hundreds of billions of dollars. That's why
Just saying, Roseanne was one of the shittiest things we watched last night.
differently.
But it was a much later episode.
Since we're talking about Israel, and that is, I don't think there should be a ceasefire until Israel has been able to secure its own borders and secure the safety of its people. And I would just note that my opponent, inexplicably to me, just a few weeks ago, compared the Israeli government to the terrorist Hamas. He said that they're morally equivalent. He said it right here in Missouri on a public radio show. I just think that that's wrong. I think it's totally wrong. I disagree with it. I think we need to say now with moral clarity that our ally Israel needs our support as they take on these terrorists and their borders. And we need to be clear that there's no moral equivalence between Hamas and the people of Israel.
Mr. Hawley, thank you. Since you raised Ukraine, I want to give you, Mr. Coons, 15 seconds to explain your position on Ukraine.
Well, sure. I have never equated the Israel government to Hamas. That's a complete falsification of everything that I've
Yeah, the Israel government's worse.
Ukraine. It will take more than 15 seconds to answer this. Do you want to ask another question on it? I mean, here's the deal. Like, what I'm talking about is spending money in Ukraine. That $200 billion is keeping us from having boots on the ground. I have done arms control negotiations with NATO and Russia over there, for the Pentagon, for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Russia is a bad, aggressive
Holly looks like he just had
military for a long time, and they want to
bad food.
Us supplying arms there is keeping us from having to have boots on the ground in a war with NATO. And if you want to see something that's going to cost a lot more than $200 billion, more than any of us can afford, it's a war where we have to put boots on the ground with Russia.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. We're moving on to party politics.
Mr. Hawley.
Party politics.
In 2020, you were the first to object to the certification of the election results.
What the fuck is her earrings?
Your former mentor, former Republican U.S. Senator John Danforth said he believes, quote, you set the stage for the January 6th insurrection. Do you feel any responsibility for the violence that unfolded? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. You know, what I feel responsibility for is defending our Constitution, which is what I was doing on that day. Listen, my view is this: one person, one vote. Every vote.
Less boots on the ground, more boobs on the ground.
Integrity. What we saw 4 years ago was one state in particular, the state of Pennsylvania, to which I objected, not follow the rules of our Constitution. Ballots were returned after they had been already counted. Votes were cast after the election was finished. Pennsylvania changed its voting procedures in the middle of the election. The Supreme Court, our Supreme Court, has been very clear that those are due process violations. And my view is we should stand up and object to that. So that's what I did. But listen, I know that not everybody agrees with me. I'll just say this. You'll always know where I stand. When I take a position, I stand by it. When I'm criticized for it, I stand by it. Now, my opponent has criticized me very sharply, and President Trump, for everything involving the election integrity stand those years ago. He's called me an enemy of the people. He's called President Trump an enemy of the people and criminals.
Well, the shoe fits.
I noticed my opponent also was running millions of dollars in advertisements that feature President Trump and seem to suggest he might vote for him. And so I just think it's a fair question to ask.
Wait, what?
Voting for Donald Trump after calling him an enemy of the people, or is he voting for Kamala Harris? I think an important part of service to our state is leveling with the people
I can't
of our state.
wait to have
Mr. Hawley,
your cock
speaking
in
of
my...
Kamala Harris.
I'm sorry, wrong one.
Harris wins the
You think
election
you just
5
fell out of
days
a
from now.
coconut tree?
Will you vote to certify the results? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, certainly I will, so long as the Constitution's followed. Listen, what happened 4 years ago is something I have to say I've never seen happen in American life before. To have a state that actually changes the rules of voting during and even after the election. As I say, I believe that's a due process clause violation, and I had to cast a vote on it. So I will always defend the Constitution of the United States. But you'll always know where you stand. I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. When I take a position, I stick to it. If you criticize me for it, I'll stick to it. I don't know that my opponent can say the same, and I think he owes us an explanation now of who he's...
This guy doesn't know how to kiss his wife.
Mr. Hawley, your time is up, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Koontz, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Josh Hawley incited a riot that led to 174 police officers being injured, led to countless civilian injuries and several deaths. He's spinning up here, clutching his pearls about a shooting range incident, and he can't take accountability for that. When he says you can always know where he stands and that he doesn't change his position, fine. Let's believe him on that on abortion. Let's believe him on that on contraception when he said that he believes contraception is the same thing as abortion. And he has literally taken that vote. He has voted not to protect contraception in the United States Senate on the Senate floor.
Thank you, Mr. Koontz. I have a question for you now. You are the Democratic nominee from Missouri for U.S. Senate. Despite repeated attempts by reporters and your opponent, Josh Hawley, you have not publicly shown support for the Democratic nominee for president. Will you tell voters who you are voting for November 5th? You have 90 seconds.
I didn't get into this race to decide who the president was going to be. I want to make sure that when I'm in the U.S. Senate, I can work with any president from any party to secure the border, to invest in Missouri, and to bring money back home. Plain and simple, that's what I want to do. I have enough problems, going around this state trying to meet everybody here and introduce myself to them, tell them about my background, tell them how I grew up here, my family going bankrupt from medical bills, and the way I've served them in my entire life in the United States Marine Corps. My entire job that I see as a U.S. Senator is to bring money back to this state and protect the people in this state. I take after Roy Blunt on that. Our former Senator Roy Blunt, Republican, he brought more than $300 million a year back to the state every single year. Josh Hawley brings back $0 every single year. He has plenty of time to write self-help books about manhood. Look it up on Amazon. He wrote a book called Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs, where he tells everybody that to be more like a better man, you just need to be more like him, right? He's got time to do that, but he doesn't have time to bring a single dollar back to this state. He doesn't have time to come here. He comes here, a recent report said, maybe 6 times a year. And when he does, he jets around in a Gulfstream 4 and doesn't get down and meet people, doesn't get down and see what the problems are. Again, this entire race for me is about this state I've spent my life honoring, serving, and protecting in the United States Marine Corps. I will bring that money back. I will do everything I can to work with any president from any party or any member of Congress from any party to bring money back home, invest in this state, and make life better for the people in my old neighborhood who took care of my family when we went bankrupt from medical bills.
So, Mr. Koontz, are you telling voters tonight that you will not support Kamala Harris, the proposed head of the Democratic Party, your party? You have 30 seconds.
I'm telling you that I am not going to decide for other people who they're voting for. I'm not going to make this a national election. Josh Hawley wants this to be about national politics because he knows he's deeply unpopular here. He knows he never comes here. He knows he doesn't bring any money here, right? Again, that's not what it's about for me. It's not about choosing the president. It's about making sure that I can work with any president of any party to invest in this state and take care of the people here.
So to clarify, does that mean there is a possibility you could vote for Donald Trump on Election Day? You have 15 seconds.
Well, I don't think there's any more clarification other than saying that this race is not about national politics for me. I'm not going to address the national side of that because this race for me is all about Josh Hawley, his neglect for this state, and what I'm going to do to make life better for the people here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Koontz. Mr. Hawley, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, listen, it sounds awfully politician-y, doesn't it? I mean, Lucas Koontz has run for office for 20 years, 4 or 5 different offices. And I have to say that this is a pattern. Back in 2020, when he was running for a different office, he wouldn't say who he was going to support for president then either. In 2023, he wouldn't say whether or not he wanted Joe Biden to run for re-election. Now he won't tell Missouri who he's voting for. Listen, I'll just say this again. You may not agree with me on every position that I take, but when I take a position, I'll be honest with you about it, and I will stick to it. And I just think that part of service is being willing to take a stand, hold to it under fire, and explain yourself.
Thank you for your answer. We're going to move on now to the border crisis, John.
Immigration, another issue that's at the top of many voters' lists. If you look at the polls,
The border in Missouri.
2 border funding bills, 2019, and then another one this year. One bill allowed 1.5 million migrants into the U.S. each year, but would also fund an additional 1,500 agents and officers at the border to protect that border. And What do you say to voters who will say, you know what, let's do something rather than do nothing? How do you respond to that? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Listen, I want to talk about this bill that I voted against and that my opponent is very much for. Let me explain the details. This bill would have allowed 5,000 illegal immigrants to cross the border every single day. This bill would have forced taxpayer funding for lawyers for illegals. There's no way I'm going to vote for that. That would have made the crisis so much worse. What we need to do is close.
We need more lawyers for people seeking
the
asylum.
Mexico program. What we need to do is allow ICE to deport illegal immigrants who are criminals in this country, including, I'm sad to say, many who have committed crimes here in the state of Missouri. Now, my opponent and I just have a difference on this. My opponent was for that bill I just described. Last time he ran for the Senate, that was 2 years ago, he said he was for amnesty. He said that he was for no border wall. He also has said that he wants to give illegals Social Security and Medicare once he gives them amnesty. I can't tell you how wrong I think all of that is. I think it's totally off target for the state of Missouri. And I'm certainly not going to support legislation that would open up our border. What we need to do is what I said, close the border, reinstitute Remain in Mexico, put President Trump's policies back in place.
Mr. Hawley, thank you. Mr. Kuntz, similar topic, different approach here. You say you'll work with whomever is elected president.
Mr. Kuntz.
The border. If that's true, does that mean you would support President Trump's position on mass deportation of migrants who have crossed the border illegally? You have 90 seconds.
Sure, I'd just like to address something first. Josh Hawley claims that I've been running for Senate for 20 years, or whatever he's claiming. You know, I was in active duty Marine Corps for 13 years. I've been in the reserves for another 3. And during that time, I actually...
Damn, he's like allergic to answering questions.
You know, I mentioned earlier that I deployed to Iraq, where I led a police training team. Before I was...
About the same distance from both, I would say, Lenny.
To lead a border team.
Smack dab in the middle.
Southern border in Arizona. I trained with the Border Patrol there. I was certified by the Border Patrol Tactical Unit. Like, I know what's going on there.
About the same distance, nowhere fucking close.
This guy. And I can tell you right now, there's some very simple things that we have to do immediately. We have to stop the flow of fentanyl. We have to end this disastrous catch and release program that we have in place. And we need to fully fund and equip Border Patrol. Josh Hawley has voted against every single one of those things over and over and over again. I mentioned Roy Blunt earlier. When Roy Blunt negotiated a border bill that Donald Trump signed into law, Josh Hawley voted against it. Fentanyl, the #1 killer of Missourians 44 and under, there was a bill to fund fentanyl scanners at the border. Josh Hawley voted against that. He doesn't care about keeping us safe. When the guys that I trained with at the border endorsed the most recent bill because it was going to fully fund and equip Border Patrol, Josh Hawley voted against that too. He doesn't care about keeping us safe. In fact, his reason for voting against these things was that he didn't think it was his job. It was the president's job. I know that's not the case. I am going to work, like I said, with any president to do those 3 things that I just said that will secure the border.
I appreciate the discussion you just had and what you do support, but my question was, would you support, if President Trump is elected, mass deportation?
Yes.
The money,
30 seconds, please.
The money that would cost is unbelievable. I think that what we need to do first is we need to secure the border, and then we can see about other things. And securing the border includes what I just talked about: stopping the flow of fentanyl, ending the Biden administration's terrible catch and release program, and fully funding and equipping the Border Patrol. Like, that's it. Those are very simple, straightforward solutions that I should be able to work with any president on. Again, Josh Hawley said it just wasn't his job. He said, oh, that's the president's job.
Oh, I don't think he has a chance in hell.
Congress should ever abdicate their job to keep the people in the state safe. But he did that.
Let me get you some polling on this.
Campaign issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hawley.
Hawley's probably up by 14.
He was a member of the Senate Foreign Policy Leadership on the Hill. How do you get Mexico involved in this, in securing the border? What do you do to lean on that country?
Yeah, terrific question. And this is where President Trump had tremendous success just a few years ago, before Kamala Harris and Joe Biden repealed all of his policies. He had gotten Mexico to agree to what's called the Remain in Mexico policy. Here's the gist of it. If you want to apply for asylum in the United States, you can do that. But first, you have to
Hawley by 12
until your asylum claims are adjudicated. I think that's exactly right. Now, my opponent, once again, when he ran for Senate just 2 years ago, he said that he was against a border wall. We'll put this all up on social media right now. Look for yourself. He's for amnesty. He has sharply criticized President Trump's policies. I just think his position's off target.
Mr. Kuntz, if you find your way into the Senate and part of foreign policy leadership. How do you convince Mexico to help secure the border?
Well, I have supported the Remain in Mexico policy. I think that it's fine. I think you go through a lot of countries to get to the United States, and I don't think that you should automatically be granted entry just because you apply for asylum. So I'm not against that. Like, this is where Josh Hawley makes up things about me over and over and over again, right? Because he knows that we're gaining ground. He knows that he hasn't delivered for this state, and he's trying to distract, and he's trying to make things up. You know, he's got a super PAC spending millions of ads, funded by a bunch of zillionaires against me. He's only run negative ads against me, nothing about his own record because he hasn't accomplished anything, and that includes failing to secure the border.
Let's come back to the economy and talk specifically about Social Security. Mr. Coons, we'll start with you here. According to the Congressional Budget Office, Social Security will essentially be insolvent by the year 2034. How would you make Social Security sustainable and yet not add to the nearly $36 trillion United States debt that we have right now? 90 seconds.
This is where Josh Hawley and I feel very, very differently. You know, he said in an AARP study, or an AARP survey, that he believes we should raise the age limit on Social Security and that we should reduce the benefit. I don't agree with that. What I think we should do is we should raise the cap on Social Security taxes so that everybody, no matter how much you're paying, pays the exact same amount into Social Security tax. That'll get us a lot of years, and it's exactly what we want to do. And the reason I take that position is because of the neighborhood that I grew up in. I grew up in a working class neighborhood in this state. And again, my family went bankrupt from medical bills there, and the people there on Social Security were many of the ones who made food for us and brought it by our house. He wants to take away their ability to do that. He has waged war on working people his entire career. I mean, let's look at what he did as our Attorney General, right? In the 3 hot seconds, he was our Attorney General before running for Senate, which Mr. Straight Shooter over here said he wasn't going to do, but did anyway. When he was our Attorney General, he led a lawsuit that took away overtime pay for more than 200,000 Missourians. He also got rid of the division of that office that kept us safe from the massive corporations that funded his campaign. Now, on Social Security, he's going to pretend to care about it because 5 out of every 6 years he doesn't, but when election year comes around, he does care about it. But those other years, he wants to hand the keys over to Goldman Sachs. He wants to privatize it. He wants to make Rick Scott the architect of destroying Social Security, the Senate Majority Leader, which is exactly what's going to happen if Josh Hawley wins this race and Rick Scott becomes our Senate Majority Leader. He refuses to protect anyone who didn't grow up like him.
Mr. Coons, thank you. Mr. Hawley, how do you make Social Security sustainable by 2034?
Okay, well, there's a lot of
90 seconds.
Thank you. There's a lot of tall tales being told tonight, I guess appropriately for Halloween. Let's see if we can separate a little fact from fiction. But first of all, here's what I would start by never doing.
God, I hate this guy so much.
I would never give 15, 20 million illegal immigrants in this country amnesty, which my opponent, sadly, has said over and over that he supports. And I wouldn't give Medicare to illegal immigrants either. To protect our Social Security program, we've got to make sure that the people who paid into it actually keep everything they paid in. And by the way, that's why I oppose, and always have, raising the retirement age or any cuts to any benefits of any kind for Social Security. Now, if you want to know how to save Social Security, the answer is start cutting things like the 87,000 IRS agents that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have spent billions of dollars on. And by the way,
that have more than paid for themselves.
But more than anything else, we have got to make sure that Social Security is there for every American worker who paid into it. And we can start by ensuring illegal immigrants never get it. And we never, ever, ever give them amnesty.
Thank you both. We're going to stay with the economy, only talk about green energy. Shirley.
All right, John, thanks so much. Mr. Hawley, you were
fascist as fuck.
A green energy deal that would take Missouri farmers' land through eminent domain for a power corridor that cuts across the state. However, it would create 1,500 construction jobs and result in about $6 billion in energy savings over 15 years. What do you say to the people who would benefit from this? You have 60 seconds.
Well, sadly, I think the people who would benefit from it are the corporations who are making all of the money. We're talking about the Grain Belt Express. Here's what you need to know. These corporations want to use Missouri as their ground to rake cash out of all of our farmers. They want to take farms using eminent domain. You're absolutely right. I have opposed this. I think it is vital we protect our farmers' land, that we protect family farmers' ability to exist. Agriculture is our #1 industry, and I will always support it. And yes, I am a critic of the Green New Deal in general. I know My opponent and I differ on this. My opponent has a plan that he wrote himself. You can read it, the American Prospect Magazine, 2021, where he says he wants to eliminate all fossil fuels. That is oil, diesel, gas, and the biofuels that we blend right here in the state of Missouri. He also says in that same plan he wants to force a transition to electric vehicles. I just think that this is totally wrong, totally off target for the state of Missouri. And yes, I oppose it. And yes, I will fight to defend our family farms.
Thank you so much for your response. Mr. Coons, you are a proponent of renewable energy. What do you say to the farmers whose land will be taken to create a green energy corridor, and to neighbors who have windmills and solar panels placed in their communities? You have 60 seconds.
What I am a proponent of is putting America first in the international energy sphere. You know, currently, our energy is run by a Saudi cartel manipulated by the multinational corporations who fund Josh Hawley's campaigns. They own us at the gas pump. We are at their bidding. We are at their mercy. And what I see coming right now is that the United States is not making the investments in the next generation of energy and manufacturing, and China is. And what we're going to end up happening if we don't do something, if we don't invest in this next generation of energy and manufacturing, and do it right here in the Midwest, our Saudi cartel is going to be replaced with a cartel led by China. And America will never, ever be the same, because we will be on our knees for Chinese energy. I never, ever want that to happen. I agree with President Trump that America needs to be first in energy, and that this is a path that we can invest in, we can defeat them, we can make sure that we're in control of that and are never at their knees. Josh Hawley doesn't care.
Don't get on your knees.
Owned by multinational energy corporations. I've never taken a single dime from a fossil fuel executive. I just don't do it. Same as Big Pharma. I don't take money from them because I don't want to stand up here and sacrifice America's future for corporate profits like he does.
Thank you so much, but I'm curious about your thoughts regarding eminent domain and taking farmers' land. 30 seconds.
I think we need to find a path that's fair for everybody. So, you know, whether that's working around that, going around it, giving them enough restitution that it makes it worth it, or finding another path. I think we need to do that. But I think that what we really, truly need to do, again, and he conflates this issue, what we need to do is make sure that 50 years from now, we are not relying on a Saudi cartel or a Chinese-led cartel, that we have our own energy production. We are first in the world, and they have to come to us for their energy needs.
Mr. Hawley, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you so much. I would just say that the way that you safeguard American energy production is to open up.
This is the very last debate of
My opponent wants to
election season. We're almost over.
Oil,
We're almost done with this shit.
fossil fuels, coal, and the biofuels that we blend right here.
I'm so over it.
I think that that is exactly the wrong direction. Now, I know that's what Kamala Harris has also proposed. And Joe Biden, as we speak, is using your tax money to fund Chinese manufacturers, which my opponent has also said he's in favor of. He criticized me for voting against it. I think all of that's crazy. We need to open up American energy.
Thank you so much.
We produce more than any country in the history of the world.
We're going to move on to gun violence.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely not true. What I have suggested is that 50 to 70 years from now, we need to be past the current generation of energy and on to the next one. And if we don't do that, because these multinational corporations have bought off too many of our politicians, we will literally never catch up, and we will be beholden to China forever. Josh Hawley doesn't care about that because he only cares about his own selfish interests, taking care of himself and the people who fuel his Gulfstream 4 as he flies around this state.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. John?
Let's talk about gun violence, and certainly Missouri has not been without it over the past couple of years. The Central Visual and Performing Arts School mass shooting here in St. Louis. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs football parade and rally following the Super Bowl. Mr. Coons, we'll start with you. You supported a 2022 law that encouraged red flag laws and also expanded background checks. But interestingly, you said it didn't go far enough. So my question, sir, is how much farther would you go, and how do you balance Second Amendment rights in doing so? You'll have 90 seconds.
Well, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. You know, I grew up in this state. I grew up in rural Missouri. I've been shooting firearms since I was a kid. You know, I was a Boy Scout, becoming an Eagle Scout. Our Scoutmaster showed us pretty much every weapon system imaginable. And then I spent 13 years carrying firearms in Iraq, in Afghanistan again. And so for me, I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, which is why a bunch of union guys invited me north of Kansas City to have an event at a shooting range there. So what I will say is this, though. You know, I was recently at a gun range down in my home county, at a gun show down in Cole County, And I was talking to some of the vendors there, and one of their biggest frustrations is that if you're a vendor at a gun show and you're doing the right thing, then you have to do, real background checks on every single one of your weapon sales to make sure that they don't go into the hands of the wrong people. But if you've ever been to a gun show, there are always a bunch of people outside in the parking lot selling weapons with no checks, no anything, no sort of even decision-making on who they go to, and it's just really not fair to the small businesses who we should be trusting to do this sort of thing. So for me, I think we should have real checks on all gun sales. I think we need to have an age limit or some sort of training that goes along with kids getting weapons. I mean, as a Marine, I know you don't just give an 18-year-old, a firearm and a bunch of ammunition. You teach them the weapon safety rules, you teach them how to shoot, you make sure they're responsible, we screen everyone when they come in just to make sure that they're okay. And, I think we need that, and then I think we need the real red flag protections. And right now, we don't have quite a few of those things.
Mr. Hawley, how do you balance the Second Amendment with public safety as it relates to guns and gun violence? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I think that the most important thing that we can do when it comes to gun violence is put those who commit it behind bars and put those who attempt to commit it behind bars. That's why I've introduced legislation that would increase the sentences for those who commit gun violence, increase the sentences for those who attempt to commit gun violence. And I'll just say that I think that this experiment that Kamala Harris and the Biden administration have run on soft on crime has been an absolute disaster.
Crime is at historically low levels.
Law-abiding citizens, which is what my opponent has proposed. I mean, my opponent has said that he is for increasing the age to buy a rifle here in the state of Missouri, for increased gun control regulation in Missouri. I will say that his incident last week maybe convinced me that gun control might be needed for him. But for other law-abiding citizens in this state, that's not how you keep people safe. How you keep people safe is you go after the criminals and you penalize like crazy those who come after our kids or attempt to do so, those who buy illegal guns, the illegal gun market. We should crack down on all of that, and we can do it if we have the political will. But what I will not support is this soft on crime agenda that has gotten us to where we are.
Thank you both. Let's move now to social media. Shirley.
Thank you, John. Well, the U.S. Surgeon General says the mental health crisis among young people is an emergency, and social media has emerged as an important contributor. Mr. Hawley, as senator, you have been an advocate for holding social media companies accountable for protecting children online. Can you point to one thing you have done that parents can recognize to protect their children online? You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I would look at my legislation, my bipartisan legislation with Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois, where we were able to get through unanimously,
Senator Dick,
Judiciary Committee, unanimously, legislation that allows parents whose children are exploited by big tech to sue the big tech companies, and in particular, child sex abuse material, child porn that is directed at these children. It would allow parents and victims to sue the companies. These companies make more money than anybody on the face of the earth. They're the biggest corporations in the world, and yet they cannot be sued because of United States law. It protects them, including the porn companies. Our legislation would allow parents and victims to sue these companies if and when your child is harmed, if and when your child is exposed to exploitative material. I think it's absolutely vital. I think we should do other things. I think we should set an age limit under which these corporations can't come after our kids, advertise to our kids. But let's start by allowing parents and victims to sue these companies and hold them accountable in court.
That's what I say about guns.
Say that here again, I think my opponent and I have a difference. I mean, my opponent has defended these companies, in particular, inexplicably to me, the porn companies, and has opposed my efforts in our legislation to allow parents and victims to go after them. I think we need to be putting more tools in the hands of parents and victims, not defending
Ponder Monkey,
companies that
you owe me a Coke,
are terrorizing our kids.
Mr. Hawley, thank you for your response. Mr. Coons, if elected, what is your proposal to protect children online? You have 90 seconds.
Well, it's entirely untrue that I haven't done any of the things that he said I just did, right? I haven't protected any of these industries. In fact, for a long time, for many years, I've been calling to repeal Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act so that we can sue these companies. He jumped on late. Great. I'm glad that he did. But I'll just say one of the demands in order to police this is to force all of us to give the big tech companies our most private information, our most private documents, our birth certificates, our driver's licenses, copies of all of those things. He thinks that that's the best way to solve this problem. I don't think that that's right at all. I think we should go after these companies. I think that they're monopolists. I think that we should break them up. I mean, Facebook shouldn't own Instagram. That should have never happened. These mergers and acquisitions that country club corporate politicians like Josh Hawley have let happen over and over and over again have been absolutely detrimental to American power and the ability of individuals to come out and be able to stand up for ourselves. The reason that Section 230 exists is because politicians like Josh Hawley, who've been taking corporate PAC money and federal lobbyist money for years, put that law into place, and it's the reason that it still exists. That's why in my campaign, I take no money from corporate PACs, I take no money from federal lobbyists, and I take no money from big pharma executives or many others, because I'm tired of these people coming in and abusing us and stripping our communities for parts. From day one in this campaign, I have always said the only people I will ever owe are the everyday Missourians in my old neighborhood who took care of my family when we went bankrupt and everyone else around them like this state. Josh Hawley is the exact opposite.
So we want to talk about uniting the country. We want to address the impact of the growing political divide in the U.S. What used to be disagreement on policy has turned into personal attacks, dividing neighbors, even families. Mr. Coons, where do you draw the line between free speech and hate speech? You have 90 seconds.
Look, I think what we've seen in our politics is an absolute degradation, and I think the reason we have that is we don't have people who are dedicated to service anymore. We have swamp creatures all throughout D.C. Josh Hawley is a swamp creature. You know, when I was working as a Subway sandwich artist down
That's an insult to swamp creatures.
And planting the seeds for Project 2025. When I graduated from school and went to my first job, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Josh Hawley's first job was at Washington, D.C.'s biggest corporate lobbying law firm. When you have a background like that, it's no wonder that you just buy into all the hate and vitriol and you do nothing but attack the other side and don't accomplish anything. Again, that's why I bring up Roy Blunt all the time, because Roy Blunt was willing to work with people from both sides of the aisle to serve Missouri, to protect Missouri, and to bring money back home. Josh Hawley refuses to do that. He only serves himself. And when you have politicians who only serve themselves and don't understand service, like I learned in the United States Marine Corps, you end up in situations where it's all about them. I mean, it's not just the hate and vitriol that he spews, but the man also spends all of his time writing self-help books, tripling his Senate salary. He has tripled his Senate salary writing self-help books about manhood while the rest of us struggle here not bringing any money home. He talks about preventing crime. Well, let me tell you something. Of that money that Roy Blunt brought home, a huge chunk of that change went to the St. Louis Police Department and other law enforcement agencies. Josh Hawley is not bringing.
Well, let me tell you about how corrupt the St. Louis Police Department is, son.
For anything, because he's more interested in dividing the country and serving himself.
Mr. Coons, thank you so much. Mr. Hawley, same question. Where do you draw the line between free speech and hate speech?
Don't get me started about Ferguson.
Well, I'll just say that I think maybe if that's my opponent's attempt to unite the country, we've got a long way to go. I'll just say this, as someone who is a First Amendment lawyer, I will defend anybody's right to express themselves clearly and reasonably. I will draw the line, though, at any attempts at violence or intimidation, which is not protected by the United States Constitution. But let me just say this. I think that, listen, Donald Trump has been nearly assassinated twice in just the last few months. Just 2 nights ago, the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, called all of Donald Trump's supporters, that would include me, garbage.
Well, you are.
I'm sure you've seen it. He said that Trump supporters are the only garbage that he sees out there. I'll just say that that kind of rhetoric, coming on the heels of the assassination attempts on the former president, I think is not only hugely...
Calling Puerto Rico garbage, totally cool.
And I wish my opponent would condemn it. I haven't heard anything from my opponent about calling many Missourians garbage, or for that matter, about the assassination attempts on the life of President Trump. But listen, I think that it is vital that we treat our opponents with respect, that we don't call them garbage, that we don't use this kind of rhetoric that frankly has incited violence. And I'm going to continue to do my part. I hope that my opponent would be willing to join me.
Well, time has flown by this evening. What's the...
No, it hasn't.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
No.
Time for closing statements, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Mr. Kuntz. You have 60 seconds for closing tonight.
Yeah, I just say to everybody out there that if you want to fundamentally change who has power in this country, if you want the right to have the right to make your own decisions, and you don't want guys like Josh Hawley deciding how you get to live in the bedroom, in the doctor's office, or anyone else, then I'm the only guy who's going to do that for you. If you want someone who's going to deliver for this state, I'm the only one who's going to do it. Josh Hawley brings back $0 every single year while the rest of us struggle. We literally struggle. He doesn't know that because he never comes here. He comes here maybe 6 times a year. That's unbelievably bad, and it's the reason why he doesn't know.
This is the final debate of this election cycle.
Saved by his community in this state when my parents went.
We made it.
Bills. I've spent
Yay!
service trying to pay that back in the United States Marine Corps. This race is about this state. It's about delivering for this state and everyone in it. And someone who's very important to me in that is veterans. I'm a veteran. I use the VA for my health care, and it just kills me that we have U.S. senators like Josh.
5 days away.
Funding for military families who stalled the PACT Act that gave veterans like me from Iraq and Afghanistan who were exposed to burn pits VA coverage. We need a U.S. senator from this state who's a veteran. Right now, not a single member of Congress from this state is a veteran, and it shows. It shows at the VA. It shows in our communities. And so I just ask you right now, I know a lot of you thank veterans for their service every day. I get thanked for it every day, and I appreciate that a lot. But what I would say is, please, on November 5th, don't just thank a veteran for his service.
Mary Jane.
So I can finally serve you and all of us.
Thank you so much. Let's wrap up with you, Mr. Hawley. You have 60 seconds closing statement.
Thank you very much. In the last 4 years, we have been through a lot together. 15 million illegals have come across the border. Crime like we've never seen before in our lifetime.
What?
Inflation that none of us can afford. And while my opponent will not tell you tonight who he's going to vote for, I think we all know whose policies he supports, Kamala Harris. So I think this election is about something very simple. Do you think we can do better?
You think you just fell out of
If
a
you want to go
coconut
on like we have been, if you want to double down on these failed policies that have got us here, then I think my opponent is probably your man. But if you believe that we can do better, if you believe we can bring jobs back to this country, if you believe that we can secure our border.
I'd like to think Missouri could do better than Josh Hawley, but
I think of a woman who I met just the other day on the campaign trail in O'Fallon, Missouri. She came up to me and said as our rally was ending, she took my hand and she told me that she'd been diagnosed with cancer. And she said, Josh, I won't see you again, but I want to tell you how much I love this country and what a joy it is to get to stand and fight to save it. That's our mission. That's our calling. Let's do that together. Thank you and good night.
Thank you both for taking part tonight. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate our viewers as well.
Absolutely.
woo. Thank God that's over. Oh. And everybody clapped. Good evening, Minty. Oof. Oof. Let me change the title. We've got a little news to do, and then we're going to do Halloween specials directly after. Well, I'll leave the title because I've got the spooky spectacular thing going on. We're going to keep it in Missouri. Our top story tonight, still in Missouri, not the debate that we just watched. It was indeed painful. An explosion at an industrial plant in Frederick, Missouri was caught on camera. Wild. I'm lucky that no casualties were reported. Let's go to some criminal stories. Let's talk about a murder trial currently going on in Indiana. This is the Delphi murders. Trial began, last week?
All right, on to our top story. Some heated moments during the Delphi murders trial today.
That's right. Most of it had to do with evidence in the case that surrounds the deaths of the two teens, Abby Williams and Libby German. Tonight, our senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel joins us after he witnessed
all of
this unfolding today in the courthouse in Carroll County.
He's live tonight from Delphi. Bob, fill us in on what you witnessed.
Felicia and Ann, first let me tell you that just in the last hour, the state has rested its case. But before they did, the jury got to hear the most powerful evidence yet against Richard Allen. Hearing someone say he killed 2 girls in his own voice, as you can imagine, that would be a very powerful thing to hear, and that's exactly what the jury heard here on day 12 of evidence presented to the jury in the Delphi murders case. The state called Brian Harshman to testify. He's a state police officer who has monitored all 700 plus Richard Allen jailhouse phone calls over the past 2 years. He and the prosecutor chose 7 of those calls to play for the jury. In one of them, Allen called his wife and said, "I did it. I killed Abby and Libby." His wife, Kathy, said, "No, you didn't."
Idiot.
Richard said, "I did." She said, "No, you didn't." Richard, "Yes, I did." Later, she says again, "No, you didn't. Why would you say that?" Richard said, "What if I did? I think I did." Kathy tells her husband, "They're screwing with you. They're messing with your mind." Richard said, "I think I did." Kathy, "No, you didn't. Why would you say that?" Richard, again, "Because I think I did." That was in April of 2023. Then 5 weeks later, the jury got to hear another call that Richard made to his wife, Kathy. In that he said, "Honey?" She said, "Yes." Richard said, "I may have to spend the rest of my life here." Kathy started crying at that point. Richard said, "I don't understand. I just got to know everybody is still going to love me."
What?
Later said during the call, "It's true, honey." Kathy said, "No, it's not." He said, "It's true, honey." "No." Richard said, "I just hope you can still love me. If I get the electric chair." She said, "No," and started crying again. Richard said, "Will you be there for me?" Kathy began crying louder, and Richard later says again, "It's okay, honey. I did it."
Did they fuck with this dude's head?
During the call,
I can believe it.
And matter of fact, Harshman described Richard Allen's demeanor during the calls as calm, subdued, and solemn. And when prosecutor Nick McLeland asked Harshman if he recognized the voice of the bridge guy on the now famous Down the Hill video that Libby German captured on her cell phone just before the murders, Harshman said he did. He looked right at the defendant and said, "It's the voice of Richard Allen." The defense team did not want the prosecutor to play only the phone calls that the jury heard today. They told the judge that prosecutor Nick McLeland was cherry-picking specific calls that did not give a full picture to the jury, and they asked the judge to order the prosecutor to play other calls as well. The judge denied that request, but during cross-examination, Brad Rosie snuck in information from those other calls where Richard Allen said he was innocent and was having mental health problems. He snuck those in despite repeated objections. The judge seemed frustrated at that point. She had a sidebar, and after that, type of questioning stopped. The state tried to play a surprise video this afternoon, video that no one was expecting. In fact, many people did not even realize existed. We're going to tell you about that video coming up at 6. Emily Longnecker, she is still in the courtroom right now, and she will also be able to tell us who the
Emily Longnecker,
as the defense now shares with the jury.
Is that what he said?
Eagle 13 News, and Felicia, back to you.
All right, Bob.
Yeah, we want this video. Okay. Let's do it.
Just late this afternoon that the prosecution rested its case and the defense stepped up, calling its first witness.
But much of the day, jurors heard recordings of Richard Allen's alleged confessions, telling family members that he killed Libby German and Abby Williams back in 2017. Our senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel and Emily Longnecker were in court today and heard those recorded calls. So tell us what they heard.
Hey, Scott and Ann. Well, the state has rested its case against Richard Allen, but not before saving its most powerful testimony for the very end. That testimony, Richard Allen confessing to the murders in his own words and in his own voice. Brian Harshman was the state's 40th and final witness. He's a state police officer.
Stop with your leftist infighting in the chat.
Richard Allen.
I'll turn this car around.
He and the prosecutor chose 7 of the calls to play for the jury. 5 of them included confessions to his wife, Kathy, and then the jury heard a few calls to his mother, Janice. In one of the calls, Allen's mom started by saying, "It's good to hear your voice." Richard Allen says, "So did Kathy tell you I did it?" His mom said, "We're not going to discuss this, okay? We love you. You know that, don't you?" Richard said, "Regardless?" His mom said, "Yeah." And then later in the conversation, Richard Allen said, "I'm just worried you guys aren't going to love me because I said I did it." His mom says he's not in a good place. And then she says, "We'll always love you, no matter what." After that, Allen again says, "I did it." His mom said, "Rick, don't talk like this. I think they're just messing with you." And after a pause, Richard tells his mother, "I love you." His mom says, "I just know you don't have it
I don't know what to think about this case. I think the cops could be messing with him.
in you to do something like this." And at that point, Richard Allen says, "Mom, why would I tell you I did it if I didn't?" The defense says Allen's state of mind during the confessions is an issue because a prison psychologist diagnosed him as having a serious mental disorder. But during most of the calls, the confessions, Allen seemed very relaxed. Harshman described his demeanor during the recorded confessions as calm, subdued, and solemn. And when prosecutor Nick McLeland asked Harshman if he recognized the voice of the bridge guy on the now famous Down the Hill video that Libby German captured on her cell phone just before the murders, Harshman said he did. He looked right at the defendant and said, "It's the voice of Richard Allen." Now, the defense
Eyewitness testimony is not reliable.
judge to require the state to play other calls that Allen made to his mom and wife, saying the state left out calls where Allen maintains his innocence and discussed his mental illness. The judge ruled against that, but the defense team briefly snuck in some information from one of the calls anyway, defying the judge and over the...
I think we're getting a lot of new info in this one.
And then we got to hear about this surprise video, a video that most people didn't even know existed until today, Emily.
Right, and the defense didn't know it existed. They had to go take a break and watch it, if you remember, when we all recessed for a little bit. This video apparently shows Richard Allen in the Cass County Jail. We know he continues to be monitored, and Master Sergeant Brian Harshman talked about what he says is in that video. He says it shows Allen screaming loudly, swearing, being irate, and telling the guards that he was going to kill them. The defense argued that this video was not relevant.
It's not.
And it turns out that Judge Gall agreed with them. So the jury did not get a chance to see this video, but they did get a chance to hear the details of what's in it before they were dismissed.
Huh.
Briefly, the state got its turn to start presenting its side of the case, and it started presenting its first witnesses.
Yeah, we heard from 2 witnesses today, 2 women. One woman who says that she was on the bridge that day during that afternoon and took some pictures, and then a second witness that lives across the creek from where the girls' bodies were found. She lives near that private drive, and she says that morning she and her husband were coming home and they noticed a man they'd never seen before standing near their mailboxes, and she noted it because they didn't know him, and no one usually stands by those mailboxes except for the people that live down in that wooded area. And she says they noticed him, and then before they knew it, he was gone. Then they said, "Where did he go?" So they called police the next day when police asked, if you saw anything strange in these past 24 hours, please let us know, and they did. So we heard from her. We'll dig into that more at Delphi Debrief.
40.
Did you have candy for him, Ponder?
For the state, 2 so far for the defense, lots more. We will have all that evidence.
Or you're just like, we weren't expecting you guys.
Here in Delphi. Back to you.
All right, Bob and Emily reporting live for us tonight from Delphi. And
oh, everybody in the chat is cool. That's what I'm saying. You guys just chill out with the getting heated. Everybody in chat's cool. Everybody in chat's cool. Let's go down to Atlanta, where the Young Thug trial still rages on. Apparently still going to be going on years from now. Unless Young Thug decides to take a plea deal, which he almost did.
It's my understanding that the state and Mr. Williams were very close to a negotiated agreement, but have reached an impasse, and that it is Mr. Williams' desire to enter a non-negotiated plea. Is that correct? Am I misinformed? Right.
Now, once again, for those of you who haven't been following this, he absolutely did everything they've accused him of, but I'm on his side. How do we know that he did everything they've accused him of? Because he wrote songs about them. He has multiple rap songs where he raps like victims, places, everything about exactly how it happened. But the state has also dropped the ball spectacularly in trying to prosecute him. I would normally agree with you, only it is literally him describing the people and places.
We can recess.
Like, there's not like artistic merit or anything to it. Like, it's just literally him describing the crimes he has committed. There's no liberties taken. It's just I don't know. One Mr. Elon Musk was supposed to appear in court today, but no showed.
Yeah, he was ordered to show up, but Elon Musk did not show up in court today at City Hall. That's because late last night, his legal team actually filed to get the court and the case moved here to federal court. They're saying it's because it involves a federal issue like the election coming up. But DA Larry Krasner and his legal team, they're saying it also involves broken state laws, which is why they're fighting to get it moved back to state court. A packed City Hall courtroom this morning as journalists, lawyers, and Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner waited to see if Elon Musk would show up to a hearing looking to stop the billionaire's $1 million a day giveaway in battleground states like Pennsylvania.
This morning, DA Krasner was here to testify. Elon Musk didn't show.
The hearing came days after DA Krasner sued Musk, who's been an avid supporter of Donald Trump and his super PAC, in order to stop.
I feel like that's a default judgment.
Register voters who sign a petition pledging to support the First and Second Amendments, and $100 to Pennsylvania voters who sign that same petition. A giveaway that election experts and the Justice Department have warned might violate federal law. And that Musk and his PAC have continued daily, posting about winners on X as recently as today. Krasner's team calling the effort an illegal, unregulated lottery and claiming it also breaks consumer protection laws. But in Musk's legal filings,
can I enter into
argue that the
his giveaway
pleadings demonstrates that the complaints, in truth, has little to do with state law claims of nuisance and consumer protection. Rather, although disguised as state law claims, the complaint's focus is to prevent the defendant's purported interference with the forthcoming federal presidential election by any means. After hearing brief comments from both sides in court today, the judge put the state case on hold while it makes its way through federal court. Musk's lawyers refused to comment, but Krasner's legal team said they'll continue fighting.
We will proceed to federal court, and we will address the issues there and seek to have the matter remanded back to the state court. After all, this is a case that involves state law issues, and I'll leave it at that.
And we've been keeping our eye on the federal court dockets all day, and nothing popped up. The federal courthouse actually closes at 4 p.m., so the earliest we may be able to see movement on any of this case is tomorrow. I'll send it back to you. I'm Miguel Martinez-Valle, NBC 10 News.
You see the look she gave him? We're going to see some body cam footage from the owner of the house that was in the movie The Conjuring.
First reported on 12 News, the owner of the famous home was arrested and charged for allegedly driving under the influence and taking off from police. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Montecalvo.
And I'm Shannon Heggie. Target 12 investigator Sarah Granelli got her hands on the body camera footage from Burrillville police that shows what went down. Sarah?
On Monday night, officers tried to pull over Jacqueline Nunez, but she took off. Officers drew their guns when she finally pulled over. Nunez tells me she initially didn't stop for officers because she was terrified and she wasn't drunk.
And she wasn't drunk?
With lights and sirens on, body camera footage shows Burrillville police officers trying to pull over Jacqueline Nunez, the owner of the...
By the way, if you're a woman and you do not feel safe, you have every right. You slow down, you put your hazard lights on, and you drive to a well-lit area if there is a cop behind you. That is legally your right. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to give you a pit maneuver, because we've seen that happen. But it is legally your right to actually do that.
The Conjuring house on Monday night.
Put your hands out the window.
After about 9 minutes, Nunez pulls over.
Driver, show us your hands.
With his service weapon drawn, the officer yells for the car to be shut off, and Nunez doesn't get out of the car.
Shut the car off. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Get out of the car.
According to a police report obtained by Target 12, Nunez was driving erratically and weaving until she was pulled over. Nunez tells Target 12 she was panicked and terrified of the police, drove past stop signs until she pulled over. Body camera shows she was then handcuffed.
Yep, I had a couple of drinks and now I'm handcuffed.
Yep, okay.
It sounds like that you really need to find a lot more things to pay attention to.
How about the fact that people you almost hit driving down here? Eureka booze.
Officers then issue field sobriety tests.
You're boring me. Okay. I'm following your finger.
Well, put your left foot on that line. Do that now.
Did she say you're boring me?
Arms down by your side.
At one point, Nunez offers to walk in a straight line and then stands on one leg.
You want me to walk a straight line?
Well, that's not the way that you're supposed to be walking the straight line. You didn't want to listen to the...
Oh, she's dead. She's sauced.
One leg stand test or no?
Sure.
Okay.
The footage shows Nunez asks officers about the test.
We're done with that one.
Because I passed it. So now
Because she passed it.
Next test then.
Now you have to find a test that you are going to say that I'm going to fail.
She tells Target 12 she was sarcastic to officers because she wasn't drunk. Then
Sure she wasn't.
Handcuffs. Nunez tells me the officers did not ask for a breathalyzer test or draw her blood for alcohol. The police report shows she refused a breathalyzer test. According to court record, she's due back in court for her arrest next month. With the Target 12 investigators, Sarah Granelli, 12 News.
Well, if they didn't draw her blood, she's going to get out of it. Because, like, you know, they don't have any evidence. Spider Pickle, welcome in. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to everybody. This is the Troll Patrol Live Spooky Spectacular. We're doing some spooky stories, and then we're going to watch Halloween specials over on the Twitch. You know it's spooky because we're going down to Florida, where an 8-year-old was hit by the cops. Oh, content warning.
A Florida cop hit an 8-year-old child on a bike with his patrol car.
Jesus!
The Sarasota Police Department released body camera footage of the incident, as well as a statement from their police chief.
The officer was leaving the scene of a separate call for service when the child entered the intersection.
Emotions ran high as neighbors and family members of the little boy rushed to the scene of the accident.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sir, we got EMS. 136, I got you.
There were several intense moments as they waited for medical help to arrive, and officers started chest compressions on the child.
Get on the radio, get rescue here now. He's on the way. Hey, baby, you okay?
41 units, I need someone to get to 27.
No.
officers carried the unresponsive child into the ambulance. The young boy has had surgery and is still in the hospital, according to the police. The officer who was driving the car has been placed on administrative duty, while Florida Highway Patrol investigates. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm TC Newman.
How was the kid that far away?
A Florida cop hit an 8-year-old child on a bike with his patrol car. The Sarasota.
I don't understand this at all. Did he send the kid flying all the way over there? And he rolled over the bike?
8-year-old child on a bike with his patrol car.
He sent the kid flying all the way over there. At least he didn't run over the kid. I thought the bump was the kid. Apparently the bump was the bike. Damn, that's scary. I told you I was bringing the spooky tonight. Let's go to this wild-ass story where a woman apparently intentionally jumped over Niagara Falls with her 2 children.
In Niagara Falls, we thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we begin with information about a terrible tragedy that police say happened right here Monday night. They tell me a mother intentionally went over the falls, bringing with her her 2 young children. Their bodies have not been recovered. I'm going to show you where they say this happened. We've learned it happened on Luna Island. Now, that's an area connected to Goat Island inside Niagara Falls State Park. It's just a short distance from where I am right now. Police tell us 33-year-old Keonti Means, her 9-year-old, and her 5-month-old went over a safety guardrail and then over the falls. This was on around 9 p.m. Monday, and they heard from numerous witnesses over the past 48 hours. Multiple police agencies have been involved in.
They all dead, right?
Spotted in the park in marked vehicles and the state police helicopters, and in the water below the falls where they're searching.
Gorgeous fall foliage, though.
Been recovered, and while this tragedy remains under investigation, state police telling me that they have yet to uncover a possible explanation.
Everyone always says, is there a red flag, or was there a warning, right? We don't see that here. We don't see that warning or that red flag or that indicator that would assume that things have taken a very, long-term turn for the worst. So either something happened suddenly, or that's the spotty area that we're not quite sure right now. The best we can do for the families is to, down the road, recover the bodies if we can, and at least have that closure for the family. The why is going to be a very difficult question for us to ask.
Yeah, still early on in the investigation, and Trooper O'Callahan says that the children have different fathers. They tell me both men are cooperating with authorities and have been.
Yeah, I think there's something funky going on here.
Everyone in the family that we've contacted, even the fathers of the children, have been very cooperative. They've been very forward with us with all information, and actually because of that, we're able to kind of speed this up quite a bit on our investigative end.
He says officers are interviewing witnesses who were here the night this happened. That was Monday night around 9 p.m. They heard from several people. There are also several cameras around the park here. They're looking at that as well in the investigation. And back here live, you're looking at a live picture of where police say that this happened. There has been a lot of talk about mental health today as well. While it's still early on, they don't know what.
Lady B.
That is something that we are talking about. And Maki Becker, my colleague, is just.
Happy Halloween.
With more on that.
Only I don't think it's still Halloween for you. I think it's the next day. It's the Day of the Dead.
Leah,
If you've ever visited Niagara Falls State Park, you've probably seen one of these blue crisis services poles. And in each of these poles, there's a phone. And these phones can
Looks like it with her kids.
24 hours.
Looks like a double murder suicide.
This afternoon with members of the Niagara County Department of Mental Health. And they shared the message with me that no one should ever feel helpless. There's always help on the other side of the line. They also emphasized you do not have to be in a state of crisis to seek out help.
So we have the phones that are available in 5 different points at the state park. They're at the Rapids, the Prospect Point, Three Sisters, Luna Island, and Terrapin Point. So if someone is experiencing a crisis, they're contemplating anything about ending their life or just needing some additional support to work through, they can pick up those phones and it dials right into our Niagara County Crisis Services or the 988 line, which we are.
Like a Susan Smith thing. Oh, wait a minute. She drowned her kids. She lived.
They've
didn't go with them.
Been feeling anxious, but they're not necessarily in a state of crisis. They've been having some symptoms of depression, or they're seeing something in a loved one. So certainly people are able to reach out and ask those questions long before things get to a crisis stage.
And that's okay?
That's perfectly okay.
So Laura Kellerman tells me that the hotline gets about 2,000 phone calls every month, and most of those are from people who just need some help. Leah?
Yeah, police here also telling me that they respond to multiple calls about mental health issues as well, and we want to share some important
Medicare for all. God damn it.
numbers that you can call to talk to somebody if you or someone you love is struggling. We have all of this information as well on our website, wkbw.com, as the investigation continues into what led a mother to intentionally, according to police, go over the rails here and over the falls with her 2 young children continues. We will continue to update you. For now,
Insane. I promise you, the spooky stories, they aren't all sad. I swear. This one might be, though. This teen decided to run from the cops and crashed his fucking car. Cicero, good evening.
Crashed out.
Was the cop got his cell phone out? What the hell?
Nate's getting angry now.
We don't have a dash cam footage?
On your knees! Is there anyone else in the car?
Do not tell children to get on their knees.
Turn around! Walk towards the road. Put your hands over your face. Do it now.
Put your hands over your face?
Between Harrison and Summerwood. Stop!
Go walk down the road like this. Peekaboo, copper.
Stop. Turn around. 360. Slowly, slowly.
You put your left foot in, you put your left foot out.
Stop. 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 Do not move. Do you understand me? On your knees. I got him. I've got him. Says nobody else is in there. I haven't cleared it yet.
I think he was just running from the cops and was at high speed. I think it's a teenager.
Chuck cleared it. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Why are you running?
Well, I'm on probation. I don't have a license.
Oh.
I'm 18.
You're 18?
I already ran from you guys once and I got caught.
I have never been to Niagara Falls. So he was on a suspended, and that's why he ran. Meanwhile, a bunch of people in Las Vegas received tickets for not stopping for a costumed pedestrian.
Is coming up in just a couple of days. Kids will be out trick-or-treating.
Yes, Fox 5's Mike Allen joins us to show us how local law enforcement is making sure everybody stays safe on the roads. Hey, Mike.
Hey, you guys. So we've got, actually right now, that's an officer behind me in that big yellow suit. Hey, Officer Keith.
This is entrapment.
Come on over. This is Officer Keith, who's going to talk to us about what he's been seeing. So you've been crossing the road here, and luckily been staying safe. People have been stopping, but some not on time. Talk to me about what that has looked like for you.
So, a couple of times.
Looks like a dick in a condom.
Coming down at a high rate of speed, and they're not being alert, and they're not paying attention to who is in the crosswalk. So yes, there's times I'm in the crosswalk, I'm in the first lane or the second lane, and cars are still whizzing by me. So we have officers that are over here that are, again, trying to pull them over.
I hope he gets hit.
Try to make them be a little bit more aware in the future.
And you dress brightly. Of course, we encourage kids to dress bright for Halloween if they're out trick-or-treating, especially in dimly lit areas. And even in the daytime, folks still aren't seeing you. And they have to be. Luis, if we can pan over to that spot, Officer Habig, let me know if this is correct. That spot over there where that yellow curb turns into the white curb, that's about the area where if they're past that point, they're okay to keep going if they see you in the road. But if they're before that point, then they have to stop. Is that right?
Correct. So at a speed of 45 miles per hour, they have approximately 305 feet to where you would be able to stop within that time. So if you're inside that 305 feet, you would be able to keep going. So, but again, if you're the more alert, the more aware that you are of your surroundings, you'll be able to see when there is somebody in a crosswalk, and you can start to prepare yourself a little early.
Yeah, well, Officer Keith Habig, thank you so much. If we're able to maybe kind of send you off by crossing the street as well, while I talk to you guys about real quick what I have seen as well. And actually, you tell me if it's been maybe over a dozen people pulled over. It seems like that. Can you corroborate that?
Yes, we have actually. It's probably closer to 20 already by now.
And that's just in the last half hour, you guys. Thank you so much, Officer Habig. Appreciate it. And definitely stay safe crossing the street. And same goes to you kids as well. And what Officer Habig and the rest of the officers here during this operation are telling me is that they really, really want kids not just to be safe, but also dress bright if you can.
Yeah, there's no crosswalk.
Those glow sticks really help you guys.
This is not a crossing.
Please get him back into your shot immediately because we have questions. Number one is how you were both able to have a straight face that whole time. And two,
oh, there's a crosswalk.
What the heck is he dressed up as?
A minion?
So our videographer Luis has a theory. It's an Oompa Loompa costume. I guess in the next hour we're just going to have to ask him. You guys might have to sit tight on that. But it's funny. The one thing.
Has your photog ever seen an Oompa Loompa before?
That I started to almost crack up about was the fact that when he was wearing his mask, his beard was actually poking through it. It was a very, very thin mask, and you could see his entire beard through it, you guys. So luckily we powered through that. He took his mask off pretty early, so I was able to keep a straight face.
Yeah, we need that answered.
I was kind of hoping we'd still have a wind advisory, because I
blow him away
with that costume.
At first, I thought he was one of those car dealership dancy things. But, oh, wait, he's coming back. Mike, you got to get him.
So he's coming back, and that car that just went over. Okay, so this car on the left here is stopped. Oh, okay.
Are you serious?
Oh, my God.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, go get him.
Look at that. We just saw that in real time. Busted, you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So how do you like that?
Well, I mean, I don't like that at all, but I'm glad that they're out doing enforcement.
No.
Royalty-free yellow guy.
I do need to know what he's dressed up as.
Yeah, follow up on it, and we'll and then get back to us on that.
A fat minion without pants.
9:30. Meantime, we're probably going to see another, and this is only again in the last 30 minutes. We've seen like 20 or so. So we're probably going to see maybe close to 50 by the time we see you guys next.
I kind of want to buy a car now. All right. Anyway, Mike, thank you. All right, let's
thank you guys.
Wait, the anger was like, I kind of want to buy a car now. Does that mean you want to go out there and try to hit the cop in the big yellow outfit, the big yellow garbage bag? No, he wants to hit the children. Speaking of people that you would love to hit with your car after you saw them in a Halloween costume.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Spooky Points with Crystal and Sagar. I'm the hidden Indian passenger of the ghost of the Titanic, Sagar and Jetty, and I have a co-host today here from Australia.
What up, everybody? Australian breakdancing phenom, Ray Gun, right here, right here. That's right. Took the world by storm with my iconic moves, and I thought I would join everybody this morning to show you a few of those. You ready?
Yes, yeah,
Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Here we go, world. Here we go. Here we go. What up, everybody? That's right. I got a little sprinkler for you. I got a little sprinkler for you. I got a little kangaroo hop for you. I got a little kangaroo hop for you. Ready for this one? Whoa, you were not ready for that. You were not ready for that. How about this one? You ready? You ready? Watch this. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
You missed out on the Senate debate.
You know what?
It was horrible.
Bam! That's right.
Wow.
That's right. Give me the gold medal right now.
Well, they certainly didn't have that in my time at the Olympics.
I mean, she's a superstar, right?
Yeah.
I had to go as Ray Gun because she
pulls it off.
Inspiration that literally anyone could make it to the Olympics.
You're absolutely right. Mine is much less complicated. I got this for my wedding, and I just said the only way I can justify this expense is if I wear it for Halloween every single day.
What?
That was fun. I enjoyed it. All right,
We
what
thought
do we
it was
have
a
on the show
little
today?
tense around here. So
God, they suck.
You gotta lighten the mood. So what is even in the show today?
I
been too focused on
genuinely, I was a little too focused on my kangaroo hops to really think it through.
Why is he doing whiteface?
We got Ed Germentum coming in to talk to us about why he.
I got a poll for you.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me.
Let's bring this spooky train on home, shall we? Got a black kitty with orange eyes. Shelly, good evening. Sagar dries you up. I don't blame you. You guys made it. It is the final debate of the election cycle. We watched one of every Senate debate that took place. We never got a debate for Ohio. We never got a debate for Florida. We covered one of every debate that we could watch. One of every Senate debate. We did a handful of congressional races. We did the vice presidential debate, the presidential debate. It's been a long campaign season. Get ready for a long week when we come back on Sunday night. If you're watching on YouTube or checking out the podcast, we're going to have to say bye to you guys because we're going to go do classic television Halloween specials over on the Twitch and the D Live. So go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN. We will see you Sunday night on the Troll Patrol live, all you YouTube and podcast